Hopefully. Oh no, there we are. Right. Hello, everyone. So, welcome to the Facebook Live tonight. I have got this very special guest. Right, Lene. So she is our special guest. We are going to be having a chat about postnatal anxiety and postnatal depression. So if you let us know if you are actually on and if you can hear us and if you can see us, because we've always got to make sure that everything is working okay with technology. And we're just going to have a very relaxed, informative chat around sort of postnatal anxiety and depression with our cups of tea in our hand. And so let us know if you can hear us. I can see there's a couple of people who are on already. Give us a thumbs up so that we know you are on. There's one there, so that's awesome. So, Lene, how about we just start with you as far as where you're coming from, what your background is and things like that. Yeah.
So I'm a clinical psychologist and I have a special interest in maternal mental health. I've got a practice in Epsom where I work with moms who are pregnant through sort of the perinatal period and up to around about 3 years postpartum. So those early motherhood years where all sorts of challenges can crop up.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So as far as looking at postnatal depression and postnatal anxiety, you've got a list there as far as what we can start off with, as far as talking about, did we say the difference between the two? Or what do you want to start off with? As far as
maybe just in general, talking about what postnatal depression is. We do hear the term postnatal depression a lot, and there's been a little bit of confusion around, is that depression? Is it anxiety? What is actually meant?
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people, when they talk about postnatal depression, they refer to the whole range of emotional distress that women can experience during the perinatal period. Other people, when they speak about postnatal depression, they literally just refer to major depression that happens in the postnatal period. So people have come up with all sorts of different terms. There's now specialists who speak about perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, and that's actually a good way to acknowledge that women who struggle with emotional disorders after having a child, they're not just depressed. There's often anxiety in the picture as well. So I think when we talk tonight, we can talk about postnatal depression, but just keep in mind that that might also include the anxiety disorders.
So it encompasses sort of the anxiety, postnatal distress, depression. So it's sort of so they overlap a little bit in different stages.
So it's basically like an umbrella term.
Absolutely. Okay, so who is most at risk, you think, as far as from postnatal anxiety, distress, or is there a particular type of personality or somebody that's more at risk than someone else, than another person?
Well, first of all, anyone can be affected. So it doesn't matter how high functioning you are, what job you do, anyone, even if you haven't had a history of any depression, there's still a possibility that this can affect you. In terms of personalities or people who might be more at risk, there's definitely two sort of personality traits or types that is more at risk of developing postnatal emotional problems. The first one is perfectionists, and that makes sense because when you think of a perfectionist, they really want to do things perfectly. They've got really, really high expectations for themselves. They like to be in control. So now when they have this baby, It's really hard because suddenly things seem quite chaotic. They start right at the bottom. As any new mom, you don't start off being an expert.
Yeah.
You have to learn. You fail. You mess up. You don't know what to do. There's a lot of unknown, and perfectionists really struggle with that because they do like to do well in things, and they've got
all their ducks in a row, don't they?
Absolutely,
sort of, they can't really do that with baby because things sort of, change up and that kind of thing. So
so they tend to have quite a hard time. And then the other sort of population that's slightly more at risk is introverts. So when we think about what introverts are, it's people who they really crave solitude from time to time.
Right.
So they might love being with people, but they do need those times where they can just be on their own, where nobody makes demands of them, where they can just sort of charge their batteries. Now, when you've got a baby, you're basically never alone. So that can also be really, really hard.
Right.
So double whammy if you're an introverted perfectionist.
Yes. Absolutely. So if anybody wants to ask any questions while we're on the live, please do so. So just comment. We can see it on the live. I've got my phone here as well, so we won't miss any questions if you do have some questions. So it'll be great to also preempt the conversation if there are some questions out there for us. So let's have a look as far as what could be the symptoms and the signs that somebody may possibly have postnatal anxiety. And I think we discussed it before we actually went live, that it's also very important to actually differentiate between the baby blues, like the third day blues, and postnatal distress and anxiety, and the difference for that as well. So so what sort of the things that mums can look out for, and
so first of all, it's really hard for mums to identify that they might have depression. And the reason for that is that a lot of the symptoms of depression, postnatal depression, are things that you sort of assume is natural or normal when you're a new mom. So things like you're not sleeping well, you're tired all the time. So that could actually complicate the picture quite a bit. And then when you go out to your coffee group and you hear everyone is saying how tired they are and how hard this is, and you're just thinking, well, this is hard. So what I'm experiencing is obviously normal. But then you start to think, well, why do everyone else seem to cope so well with it and not me? And does that mean I'm not as good a mother? Is there something inherently wrong with me? So it can actually then just make the depression worse. But in terms of symptoms of depression, so first of all, there might be a depressed mood. So you might feel sad, you might feel hopeless, you might feel like things are not going to get better. This is your life and you're not really enjoying it. Saying that, and this is actually really interesting, having a depressed mood is not, it's not necessarily necessary to have a depressed mood to feel or to be to have depression.
Right.
So sometimes you hear moms say, you know what, I actually really struggle to bond with my baby. I just have absolutely no feelings towards my baby. I feel a bit numb. I'm tired, but I'm not depressed. I'm not sad. I mean, I laugh and I carry on with life. I'm actually fine. So I'm clearly not depressed. But the thing is, you can still be depressed because the low mood isn't necessarily a symptom that you need for that diagnosis to be made. But often it is something that women experience. So the next symptom that we look out for is when a woman loses interest in activities around her. and often activities that she used to enjoy.
I was going to say, because I mean, just going back to the sleep, often they don't recognise that they are anxious or they have depression, because when they do go to the coffee groups and they know that they're actually feeling sleep deprived and having lack of sleep, the sleep deprivation is so normalised that they actually feel, well, even though I feel that I'm really struggling not getting enough sleep, those mums who are not getting enough sleep don't seem to be struggling. So it can't, it must be normal the way I'm feeling. And it can't be depression and that kind of thing. So it's really, really important, especially for those of you who are listening, that mums, the sleep deprivation, while it's normal for one mum and one mum can actually cope, doesn't mean that the other person who's feeling really sleep deprived and who's feeling really down and has got some symptoms or signs of depression, that is the norm for them. And so you should be able to give yourself permission to ask for help. So that's really, really important as well, as far as that. It's because that's what we often get when we work with mums and with new babies and newborns, is that we just have to cope. It's just part of having a baby. Just cope. Even if you feel so sleep deprived that you can't function, and you still hear those words, you just have to cope. It's just
the way it is.
But that's not reality, really, as far as that. There is help out there. So sorry, I butted in.
No worries. No,
it's
So back to
it's time for yourself as far as finding that.
So activities that you enjoy, you might no longer enjoy, and what we often, or what that sometimes present in moms, is that they might not have an interest in their baby. So they go through the motions, but it's what I mentioned earlier, that feeling of actually I just feel numb. This baby is here, I do what I need to do, but I'm getting no joy from this relationship, and actually it's not really very interesting to me. Or on the other hand, you get moms who the only thing that they're interested in is the baby, and everything else they have absolutely no interest in. So again, just the general sense of not enjoying life, having no joy. There's no joy. Every day it's just have to get through it. Every day I feel like it's 100 hours long. And then other things that we look at is when there's sleep disturbances. Now, we know when you've got a newborn or a young child that your sleep will be disturbed. It's just a fact of life.
Absolutely.
But what I mean with a sleep disturbance is that when you do get the opportunity to sleep, so when you've put baby down, baby's sleeping, it's time for you to go to bed, and you lie there and you're counting sheep and nothing happens, and you are so bone tired, but you just can't fall asleep. So that's
can't get into that zone. So it's just relaxing and just letting it go. And
exactly. Or you might fall asleep, but then you wake up. A few hours in, and it's not the baby who woke you. You just wake up in the middle of the night and you're lying there, can't go back to sleep. The other side of the coin is that you might want to sleep all the time. That we don't see so often in postnatal depression.
We don't have time to be
you don't have time. No, exactly. You just you can't just stay in bed the whole day. So that's not so common, but for some mums, they will go to bed, and then in the morning when they have to get up, they just can't. So that could also be a sign. And then appetite changes. So when you're depressed, you might lose your appetite. So you might go off food a little bit, or you might compulsively want to eat,
so
snack and
so
eat, and
emotional eating a little bit as well.
Yes, and that then you might see that reflected in your weight. Your weight might go up, or your weight might go down, but that is just something to keep in mind. Other things might include negative thoughts, like I'm not a good mother.
Yeah.
Feeling guilty. Guilty.
It's huge, isn't it? It's feeling guilty, but yeah,
absolutely.
Especially when you're comparing yourself to other mums. When you go to coffee groups and you generally all you talk about is how your baby's sleeping, or especially in the first few weeks. So that's probably the hardest.
Yes, and you're just feeling quite worthless. Like, everybody seems to be doing so well, and I'm just worthless. I'm not good at this. My poor baby, doesn't deserve a mom like me. Thoughts like that.
I think it's also like when you say that everybody seems or appears to be doing so well, it's probably not the truth either. As far as a lot of mums do sort of like put themselves as far as like, I am coping, it's okay. Because if I show some vulnerability, or I'm not feeling good, or I'm not sort of wanting to be with my baby 24/7, it sort of seems to be a negative thing, so they don't want to talk about it. So just because people within your coffee group look like they've all got it all together, probably most often they've got challenges themselves, and they're
it's really interesting that and again, this is quite a almost unique in a sense to postnatal depression, that a lot of moms don't look depressed at all. You will meet a mom who might be severely depressed, but she might have the perfect makeup, perfect hair, be perfectly dressed, smile, laugh, and you would never think that this mom is depressed until you actually start talking to her. And the reason for that is exactly what you said, that there is such pressure on new moms, or often they put that pressure on themselves to be perceived as doing well. I mean, we all want to be seen as good moms. When we're expecting our babies, we have this idea of the mom that we're going to be, and we're going to do all the right things, and then reality happens, and it's a lot more difficult. But we don't want the world to see, because we're so scared that people will look at us and think, no, she's not a good mom. So women with postnatal depression would often use every last bit of energy just to make sure that they look okay,
nothing's wrong.
Yes. And I think there is a huge denial component, because it's a huge loss to admit to yourself that I'm not that perfect mother that I thought I was going to be. So you cling on. You cling on to this idea of, actually, I'm fine. My hair is beautiful. I'm fine. But inside you're not. And
I think it's important when we talk about sort of the perfect mother thing, though. There is no such thing as a perfect mother. It's just and I think it's really important that it's a lot of the information that mums receive, especially in the first few days or even the first couple of weeks, they often feel they have to conform to that information, and they can't actually trust their own intuition, or they can't actually just nurture their baby the way that they feel works for them. And so that pressure again of having to nurture their baby the way that somebody else has said that they should be doing. So that's there's pressure there again as well. But because I often find, just working with mums, sort of around that 5 to 7 week mark, that's where I often find that they're starting to show some signs of looking at feeling slight anxiety, and a little bit of depression, as far as, because again they've had a few weeks of sleep deprivation, things may not be working for them. They may be ready physically, as far as to get back into some things that they enjoy, like even hobbies or even sport, or even just getting up and going for a walk, in the park. But they're finding themselves that they actually can't have that energy. They don't have that energy to actually do that. So that's where I often find a lot of mums are starting to But it's of course it's also and we'll talk a little bit about that as far as the baby blues, because that's sort of the third day blues. That's quite different again, isn't it? As far as those first 3 days, 4 days. And then we can also look at as far as if you've had a traumatic birth. I'm finding that some mums who are, like you say, perfectionists, who've got their birth plan all set out, and it's totally hasn't gone the way that they planned. And those sort of things already are starting to show, that their failures really, as far as things that didn't work that they set out were going to work and that kind of thing. So what is the difference between the baby blues and postnatal anxiety, and can you sort of differentiate between those two? Because often GPs may actually say, you're 2 weeks down the track or 3 weeks down the track, or you still got baby blues, it's okay. But there is quite a difference there, isn't there?
No, so the baby blues is a very natural, normal, biologically driven event, and up to about 80% of women experience that. So it's very, very common. And basically what happens is after you've had a baby, there's a huge shift in hormones, a massive, it's the biggest drop in hormones that a woman will experience in her lifetime. And the hormones that's especially significant is progesterone and estrogen, and they are linked to our mood. So when they drop, a lot of women have mood symptoms. So they might be sad, they might feel quite a depressed mood, irritable, just feel overwhelmed. So and it's normally around about the day that your milk comes in. So your breasts are gorgeous. It's really just everything just feels too much.
No, I remember particularly with my first, I was because he was born on the 20th. My birthday's on the 23rd, so that was the third day blues was on the 23rd, on the third day.
Very nice birthday.
No, and nobody was visiting me, and I was just, most of the day I was just crying. And I really deep down knew that actually, people would be coming in the evening time. But I thought, actually, nobody loves me. Like, I've just had this baby, and I'm all on my own, and it's my birthday, and I just cried probably most of the day. But I knew, obviously with my background, I knew that was just very normal. My milk was coming in, I was getting engorged, and I had pain, and trying to feed at the same time and things like that. So I knew that was the baby blues, and that was happening.
Still,
but and I guess it's a struggle, especially with new mums now, because I was in hospital, so I sort of still had that support. But a lot of mums are going home really early and actually don't have that support, so they've got that extra pressure of actually looking after themselves when they're at home. So that again, it's sort of like
no, definitely. That's definitely that combination of hormones, and then the stress of having to now care for a newborn. And you're tired. But it lasts for a couple of days to maybe a week, week or two, and it resolves on its own. So it's not something that we're worried about. It's not something that needs treatment. You just need lots of support, and need to be gentle on yourself. And then round about 2 to 3 weeks after you've given birth, then that should have resolved. So women who still experience mood symptoms, then that's when we will suggest that we need to look into that a little bit further. So that might be
more in depth as far as what's going on.
So baby blues, very common, to be expected. Also, another difference from depression is that they might feel fine, for most of the day, and then suddenly, out of the blue, they start crying and they can't stop crying, and then they feel better again, and then so it's quite a labile mood, up and down, where depression seems to be more like a pervasive, low mood. Just thinking in terms of other symptoms of depression, so something about postnatal depression, where it might differ a little bit from sort of what we tend to know as depression is that it's quite an agitated depression. So postnatal depression often has a lot of features of anxiety.
Right.
So what we often see with women who are depressed, moms who are depressed, they might feel quite on edge. They might be very, very irritated. Right. So, you know, their partner can't do anything right.
Yeah.
And then they have, they get angry quite quickly, and they might have outbursts, anger outbursts, and what moms will often describe as absolute rage, that rage where you just literally see red.
Right.
And this is very, very distressing for a lot of women, because that might be, you know, she might not have been like that at all previously.
Right.
She might have
so
been the kindest, calmest, easygoing person, and suddenly she has this rage, and the partner doesn't know what's going on, and you know, it's just really very upsetting.
Right. Yeah.
And again, that might feed back into her belief that, you know, I'm actually just a terrible person. You know, I'm not a good mother, and I'm also a horrible partner, and just think, well, that's who I am now.
Yeah. So we've actually got a question which I'll read. So this is, I resonate with all the traits that Lene described, but didn't think that I had postnatal depression because I didn't feel like it was clinical depression. So I just thought it was new to me, and I'm just not a natural mum. What is the treatment for postnatal depression? Do you have to have medication? So we're actually very, very good question.
Yeah.
And that's definitely on our mind. Do you want to talk about that now? Shall we?
Yeah, I think so. So I think we've covered most of the symptoms.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the treatment.
Yeah.
And again, I think, you know, that's a very real concern that moms immediately think, okay, well, I need to go to my GP. I'm not feeling well. It might be depression, but he or she's probably going to put me on antidepressants. And for many women, that's quite a scary thought. They might have for their own reasons, there might be reservations about antidepressants, especially if she's still breastfeeding or if she's pregnant. That's those are very real concerns. The treatment for postnatal depression, if it's a mild depression, so if it's and you know, like you said, you didn't feel it was clinical, so sometimes women can have these symptoms of depression, but it might not meet the threshold for a clinical depression. And then we often diagnose them with an adjustment disorder, so that's sort of just a milder version. So when the depression is mild, what we suggest is that a mom receives some support in the form of, you know, let's see what we can do to make life a little bit easier. Is it that you know, that you're all alone at home, the washing is piling up, you're getting stressed out, your house is looking chaotic, and that's stressing you out? So is there someone that you can ask to come and help you, you know, just create a bit of order that's going to make you feel better?
And we actually, we actually discussed that before we came on live, because I have done a few sort of courses with, you know, talking about postnatal anxiety and depression. And I'm very much a person, I mean, I suffer from a little bit of anxiety, and my little thing as far as if I'm feeling a little bit down, I actually start feeling worse if there's chaos within the house. So if the house looks untidy, if the dishes aren't done, or I know that I've got a huge pile of washing that's sort of like piling up, for me, for my mind to be a little bit clearer and to feel better, I actually function better with a tidy house. And so often what I've heard is that you hear, just leave the house, just don't tidy up, you're more important, just care for your baby, don't worry about the actual, you know, washing that's lying all over the couch, or don't worry about that you haven't vacuumed. But in fact, if that's important to you and it actually makes you feel better, and you can function better, then that is actually something that you know, you can actually do and or get somebody to help you. So it's very important to actually talk to people what you actually feel and what you know will actually help you make you feel better, and that's different for everybody. So to say for a mum, don't worry about the washing and don't worry about the house, you know, can be quite hard for another mum who's very much enjoy the house being tidy and being clean. So
absolutely, and also other things that you know, we'll look at things like sleep, because often that is a big contributor to why moms aren't feeling well. And you know, it might be that they need to speak to somebody like you to help them, you know, to see if there's something that they can do to get some good sleep. Because I mean, even though we accept that your sleep is going to be disturbed, I think there's sleep disturbance and then there's sleep disturbance. You know, if you consistently, you know, for the last week, you've never slept longer than an hour, then that, you know, that can seriously affect your mental health. So some plans need to be made to help you with that, even if it's, you know, making plans around, you know, can your partner take over the feeds, so that you can just have a nice extended period of sleep. So sort of very basic things that can support you. And then also psychotherapy for mild to moderate depression. Psychotherapy actually is the sort of the first line of treatment. It works. Actually, they found that using antidepressants for moms who are mildly depressed, it doesn't really have an effect.
A huge effect,
no,
right?
No.
Okay.
So when you are when the depression is more serious, then antidepressant use might be considered. And the reason is that when you really are feeling, when you're really struggling and you're really depressed, you're just not going to have the mental energy to work with a therapist. When you go to therapy, there's going to be, I mean, you're going to do some work, and you need to, you know, work on your thoughts, and but when you're really depressed, you're just not going to have that energy to do that. So then you might need some antidepressants just to get you back to
just
a
get over
place.
that hurdle, isn't it? Because it actually helps you, it calms the mind, and actually helps you maybe think a little bit clearer as well. Because often when you are sort of in a negative state, you've got so much negative thought going through your head, and you can't find that balance. And so actually that medication may actually help you reach that sort of that balance to be able to actually go over that hurdle and sort of go towards feeling better and working out what you need and that kind of thing. So those, you know, both the therapy and the medication can work quite well together, as far as in unison.
No, definitely. And it's now a lot of moms who are still breastfeeding, they do have the concern about, you know, will this affect my baby? And unfortunately, there's not really any medication that we can say that's absolutely safe, 100% guaranteed. We know that there are some medications that are safer. So, and again, when we say that it's not, you know, it's not gonna, they will never, you know, prescribe you medication that's going to have severe effects. It might be mild. You know, there's a risk that there might be a mild effect, but nothing serious. Otherwise, they won't prescribe it. But now, often moms will say, well, you know, if it's going to have any effect, then I'm not taking it. My baby is too important. But you have to weigh up, you know, you being depressed. It actually has more of a detrimental effect on your baby than, you know, having a little bit of exposure to your medication through breast milk. And we know that it's very, very diluted, so you know, it's not going to be you know, a severe effect. But again, it's just weighing up, because when you're depressed and you know, you're not able to be as responsive to your baby as you would have been. And that can actually affect their brain development, can affect the attachment. So that can have a lot more longer term.
I was going to say long term is probably,
exactly.
So short term as far as medication might be the better way to go. Because then you can manage and then work on like with a therapist and things like that. And just,
So it's decisions that the mom has to make. Nobody's going to tell her, you know, you have to go onto medication, unless she is severely depressed, and then when it actually moves into the point where she might become psychotic, then she needs to be in hospital and get medication. But I think a mom's choice and her autonomy always needs to be considered. So nobody's going to force you to start using medication, but it is something that can really help a lot if you are at that point where you're really not doing well.
Awesome. So if there's anybody else on that would like to ask some questions, just having a look to see what else we were talking. Is there anything else on your list that you specifically want to?
I might actually just talk a little bit about anxiety as well, because so like I said, it's often quite a mixed picture. So often moms, they get diagnosed with depression, but they have symptoms of anxiety as well. Or other times they have an anxiety disorder, but with symptoms of depression. Sometimes they might have both, anxiety disorder and depression. So the anxiety disorders that we see in the perinatal period, the first one is what we call generalized anxiety disorder. So that is basically when you have excessive worry. These moms, they're anxious, they're on edge, they constantly worry, and often about the welfare and the safety of their child. So it's like, I can't sleep. I can't go to sleep because what if baby stops breathing? Or I can't leave the room because what if, she turns around in her cot and doesn't breathe. And
so it's almost a little bit overthinking as far as so there's a lot of what if,
and imagining worst case scenarios. And again, it's a difficult one because in your mind you're thinking, well, I'm just being a caring mother, and this child is the most important thing in my life. I will do anything to make sure they're safe. And you don't realize that actually it might be a bit excessive. It might be someone close to you who might say something like, really, you need to relax. It's actually fine. But it's really quite a hard one because they just feel like they can never relax.
Take a breather.
They can never, it's like on all the time, and it's exhausting. And they will also often become irritable, and just feel restless, struggle to sleep, and and often if that goes on for a long time, because life isn't enjoyable when you feel like that. Also, symptoms of depression might start
creep in.
So that's generalized anxiety. And then the next one that we often see is post-traumatic stress syndrome in moms, and that's often when there's been often during birth, when there's been a traumatic birth, where there's been a moment where either the mom or the baby's life was in danger. So you're giving birth and something, you notice that something's wrong. You don't know what's going on, and you think your baby's going to die, and it's really scary in that moment. And then what happens is, you go home, but your mind is constantly going back to that birth, and so you can have flashbacks, intrusive thoughts. You don't want to think about it, but they just pop up all the time. And it just makes you feel really anxious, and like you also just can't relax. So PTSD.
So that would be also very similar to mums who are coming home who've had babies in special care baby unit, neonatal unit, and that kind of thing. So all of a sudden they've been in that sort of safe space as far as the hospital, and then it's time to actually take their babies home. They could have feeding tubes, or sometimes even babies with oxygen and things like that if they were preem babies. So it's probably a good idea, and I'm actually, that'd be one of the good questions that we could see or have a look at, as far as, does the hospital provide some kind of, somebody to talk to about anxiety as far as going home and how to deal with that? And because there would be a lot of mums that would feel quite anxious going home.
I'm not too sure. I'm not sure every hospital has a
Yeah.
a particular service that they
Mm.
offer, but it feels like it should be something.
Yeah.
Because and again, moms who had babies in the in the newborn ICU, they also had a higher risk for postnatal depression.
Yeah, well, because they've been away from bubbies as well, they haven't been able to be very close. So there's lots of other things that are going on as well. So yeah.
And then another anxiety disorder that we see is OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's not as common as the others, but that's when a mom starts having thoughts that something terrible is going to happen, and it's often also involving the baby. So you might have a thought of the baby's in her room. Did I leave the heater on? And you immediately your mind jumps to this thought that the room's gonna catch fire.
Okay.
So you need to go check. And then you leave the room, and then even though you've just checked, again that thought comes into your mind, and the only way that you can relieve a bit of that anxiety is just to go check again.
Right.
Yes. And then often also around things like germs. So you're so scared that your baby might be exposed to germs that you end up compulsively cleaning.
Right.
So obsessive compulsive disorder is basically you have this distressing thought, and then you have to there's a behavior that you need to do in order to just bring the anxiety down, but it's very temporary. Then the thought comes in your mind again, you need to do it again. So that's one that we also see, and it's also very distressing for moms. Later on, the behavior, this constant checking or the constant cleaning, that becomes a form of distress in itself, because she realizes that this is, I'm not only cleaning the whole day, but I can't stop myself. And then the last one that we also see is panic disorder. So that's when moms start having panic attacks, either during pregnancy or after they've had a baby. And a panic attack is basically just a sort of a period of very, very heightened anxiety. It feels like you can't breathe. Your heart starts beating. So you start to experience really physical symptoms of anxiety, sweating, and often it feels like you're going to go crazy, like you might have a heart attack. Now, it's really, again, very distressing for moms. It's a horrible experience for anyone to go through. Now, when you've got panic disorder, that is something that, it can happen a few times a day, or it can happen, once every few days, but still it can be very debilitating, because there's also this element of, I don't want to be in public when I have a panic attack, because it's going to be embarrassing, and so people start staying at home. They don't leave their house, and again, for moms especially, that isolation
it's
can,
huge.
That can further lead into a depression. So definitely something to give attention to.
So just when they do have panic attacks, or when they do feel the anxiety and that overthinking, what are the sort of the little things that they could actually do on the spot to actually help them deal with some of the emotions that they're going through?
So we often teach moms or women grounding techniques. So that's just a way to bring you back to the present moment, because when you high anxiety, you're in your head, you're imagining worst case scenarios. And sometimes the best thing to do is just to remind yourself that I'm here in this moment, I'm safe. And often what we'll say is just, take a moment and notice 5 things that you can see around you and name them. So I can see the couch, I can see the computer, I can see a flower, I can see and then name 4 things that you can hear. So you basically work through the senses. Name 3 things that you can smell. 2 things you can taste, and 1 thing that you can touch. And that just tends to ground you, bring you back to the present moment, and just calm that anxiety down a little bit.
I guess it also redirects your thoughts somewhere else.
Yeah,
so you're actually not You're not actually thinking of the thoughts that is causing the panic attack or the anxiety, so you're actually redirecting those thoughts into more sort of a little bit mindfulness kind of.
Non-threatening things. Yes, and then of course deep breathing. So if you do deep belly breathing, so that actually calms down your physiology. So it's when you're breathing deeply, it tells your brain that you're not in danger. And your heart rate slows down, and it just helps the anxiety to calm down.
Awesome. So I think there's a couple more people on. So if you do have any more questions, we've got we'll stay on for the next sort of couple of minutes to see whether anybody's got any more questions. They write them down in the comments, and even after the actual live has finished, we'll say it again before we actually finish the live as far as how you can get in contact with Lene. And she's quite close around Epsom or Canderia, but she also does Skype calls or phone calls or so just thinking of anything else that we may have not discussed yet.
I think maybe something that we can just talk about as well is the causes, of postnatal depression and anxiety, because often that is something that moms, they want to know. Why am I feeling like this? Have I done something wrong? What's happening? And unfortunately, there's no blood test. For diagnosing depression or telling us exactly what went wrong. There's quite a few factors, and often it's a combination of factors that leads to why moms develop postnatal depression or anxiety. And we break it up in biological factors, psychological, and social and environmental. So biological factors would be you might have a family history of mental health disorders, or you yourself might have had a mental health disorder previously. So you might have a gene. So what we call a genetic predisposition to developing depression. Then again, obviously things like sleep. Some people are also a lot more sensitive to sleep deprivation.
Well, especially if you know before you were pregnant even that sleep was very, very important for you, and that's if you had to have your 8 hours a night to function, then you know when you actually when you're pregnant and when you actually have a newborn that is something that you actually need to closely look at. And actually having a bumps into a more of a routine rather than sort of winging it will then definitely help you with getting a little bit more sleep and
No, sleep is incredibly important,
and that's why it's often not talked about as far as, because when you with non not in motherhood and not to do with parenting or newborns, when we actually talk about depression, sleep is the number one thing that they always look at. Like, are you getting enough sleep? But it's often the question's never asked when you actually have a baby and a newborn, because again it seems to be the norm. It's accepted.
It's a big one. Keeping people awake it's a form of torture. So it does, if you don't sleep. And again, you might get an hour here, an hour there, but for your brain to really replenish itself and to function at its best, you need a bit more extended sleep. So I mean, even in the beginning it is difficult, but even if you can make some sort of arrangement with your partner or with a friend to come in, and you can just if you can get 4 hours of sleep, already that is so refreshing, and that could be really quite a protective factor. So, and also things like nutrition, that if you've got poor nutrition, that also can make you a bit more vulnerable.
So as far as when you're thinking of nutrition, so I know that is there certain increasing your protein intake or increasing certain sort of foods that might actually help you? Is
No,
there anything
I think the
with more of a balance
nutritionists,
as far as making sure that you just,
I think, just eating real food as well, and obviously getting lots of veggies and fruit, lots of good oils, lots of, the omega-3s. But, and often during pregnancy, it's hard, especially if you've got a lot of struggle with morning sickness. It's often really difficult to eat properly. So, that can also, cause you to be a bit nutrient deficient, and that does have an impact on your biochemistry, can have an impact on your mood. So also just things to think of. Other things are hormones, of course. Hormones is a big one when it comes to postnatal depression. But
do they test for hormone imbalance at all with postnatal depression, or not? Just out of interest, I'm just thinking, how do they gauge?
They can, but it's not. Again, it's not going to be a diagnostic test. They can certainly look at your hormones, and if it's out of balance, then certain things can be done. But
so because I'm still a little bit confused, what is then actual clinical depression? Okay, what is
So again, there's those symptoms that we spoke about. So you have to meet a certain number of those symptoms. And it needs to be present for at least 2 weeks.
Is that then where we're talking about the Edinburgh scale? Or is it
the Edinburgh scale doesn't diagnose? So that's very important. So just for those of you who don't know or who's not familiar with the Edinburgh postnatal scale, it's an instrument that they use to screen for people who might be more at risk of postnatal depression. So often if you go to your GP and you say, I haven't been feeling well, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling anxious, you might be given this
the scale.
The scale. So it's 10 items and it's statements, and you just need to say what applies to you. And it's good and it's bad. It's most people have a bit of a love-hate relationship to it because basically, in terms of having screening instruments for postnatal depression, that is sort of the gold standard. But there are definitely some things that it can miss, and it's not looking at anxiety. And now these days we know that anxiety can be definitely in the picture. So but at the moment that's the best we have, and I'm sure in the future they will develop something that's even better. But for now that's what we have, and it can actually pick up women who are struggling, but it can also miss people. So those signs there's specific for clinical depression, those things that they look at. So to be diagnosed with clinical depression, you will need to have a comprehensive assessment. So what I will do is I will have a session with a mom, and we'll have an interview, and we'll go through all the symptoms that she's experiencing, and I will ask about other symptoms, and so we will form a clinical picture. And then if the symptoms she experiences fits into the picture of clinical depression, then we will diagnose clinical depression, and basically the diagnosis is just to help us treat her accordingly. But like I said, some women might not meet the threshold for clinical depression, but that doesn't mean that they're not suffering. And I think often that is also something that keeps moms from seeking help, but they think, I'm not depressed enough. And the point is, if you're suffering, if life is hard, and
even if it's just a tiny little bit, then there's help out there as far as
exactly. So yes, again, we know that motherhood is hard, And everybody will tell you that, and you'll go onto Facebook and onto Instagram, and everybody will tell you how hard motherhood is. But the point is, if it's hard every day, if every day you feel this is not fun, I'm not enjoying this.
There's no end in sight, as far as you can see.
It just feels like most of the time, if you look sort of at the last few weeks, last week, and you think most of the time I haven't enjoyed this. This has been a real struggle. That is not normal.
No.
Then that is something that you rather just speak to a professional and have it checked out, because with postnatal depression, there is a possibility that it can just resolve on its own, but it can take months or sometimes even years, or it can get worse.
Right.
So you can start off with sort of mild depression, and then you leave it, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and you really don't want to leave it until it's at the point that it's a medical emergency where you need to be hospitalized, because that is incredibly incredibly hard on a woman and on the family, and it's just so definitely and I know it's hard to recognize it in yourself. It is so hard, but I think if there's any doubt in your mind, if you think something might be going on, rather just go to your GP, just speak to somebody, and just get some input from somebody else, and see if you can do something about it.
Because the other thing, because we've been talking a lot about newborns and sort of they're in those first few weeks and things like that, but often mums can get diagnosed with postnatal depression or postnatal anxiety at 9 months, when the babies are 9 months, or 12 months, and we actually discuss the sort of things surrounding what's actually happening around that sort of time. So like having to give up breastfeeding because you need to go back to work. So just changing in circumstances can actually lead to feeling again overwhelmed and not good about yourself, and because you need to go back to work, you feel that you're not a good enough mum because you're not able to stay at home and that kind of thing. So those sort of little triggers can actually start those anxiety and depression symptoms later on, when babies are a lot older. So keeping an eye on that as well. So
and then again, so at the moment it's sort of accepted amongst most specialists that postnatal depression can be diagnosed up to a year postpartum. But there are some people who say it would actually be more appropriate to say up till 2 years, because these first few years of motherhood is really hard, because again, once your child becomes a toddler, there's again other stresses, and so just because your child is now a year and a half, doesn't mean that you're immune against depression. So again, just keep a check on yourself.
The other thing I find interesting, and I guess personally as well, because I am on a few sort of mummy forums and Facebook and things like that, there's probably certain things that are not helpful when you are feeling in that state. So actually being on Facebook groups and asking a lot of questions, because often some of those answers are actually going to make you feel even worse, or not feel heard, or not, so seeking help sort of really more close to you, as far as from family or from a GP, that you're able to get more personalised help rather than actually seeking help from social media and that kind of thing is important too, I think.
I agree with you. I think I can understand why mums do it though, because in a sense you can still be a bit anonymous. It's often much easier to talk to strangers about what you're experiencing than it is to talk to the people close to you. Because again, there's that, you feel that there's those expectations, like that they want you to be well, and they want you, they see you as a good mother, so you don't want to disappoint them.
Absolutely.
But definitely, I think, like you said, those responses on say a Facebook group, they can be very, very helpful. But again, remember that people out there, they're not trained mental health professionals. So some people, even though they mean well, they might just come across as quite insensitive, and that might make you feel worse. So, and then again, you know, just also be careful of the information overload. That can be really overwhelming.
So we've got do you know much about postnatal depletion?
Yeah, that's actually.
So are you able to talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, now that's a relatively new term, but also something that I find really interesting, and I think something that a lot of moms are struggling with. So that is, it's not a diagnosable disorder. It's it has to do with sort of your physiology. So while you're pregnant, a lot of nutrients gets taken and given to the fetus, so that baby can grow. So often when moms don't eat well, and even if they do eat well, the fact is that these days our food is actually not very nutrient dense. So they might end up becoming more and more nutrient deficient. And then of course the birth, it's you know, it's quite a very physical event. They might lose a lot of blood. It takes a lot of energy. So again, they're actually in quite a almost a weakened state after you've given birth. And then you're straight in caring for a newborn. And I don't know, I can remember myself in that point. I didn't really make a point of eating well. I sort of grab a rice cracker with marmite or something.
Miss breakfast and by 11 o'clock. You still haven't.
And I mean, also a lot of moms are trying to lose the baby weight, so they're not eating well. But then on top of that, there's the sleep deprivation, the stress, the mental stress, and moms just end up feeling, so they're not quite depressed, but they're just extremely tired all the time. So they can laugh and carry on with life, but they're tired. They've got brain fog. So what we know is baby brain. It's just they can't really concentrate. Their memory isn't good, and often the treatment for that is just basically going back to the basics. So, you know, look at your what you're eating. Get back, make sure you're sleeping well, get some exercise, and then also caring for yourself from an emotional and psychological point of view. So just basically just really good self-care. And obviously you can work with a healthcare provider, and often functional medicine doctors or integrative doctors are good ones to work with, because they sort of look at the whole picture. But I think it's just about when you've had a baby to realize how incredibly important it is to take care of how well you eat. You know, really making sleep a priority. And I mean, sleep is an interesting thing because I mean, you don't have a lot of it, but then often, you know, you will put your baby down to go to bed, and that's the only time of the day that you have a few hours for yourself. So it's very tempting to go on Facebook or watch Netflix, or and then, you know, go to bed a few hours later, and just as you go to bed, the baby wakes up. And then, you know, you haven't really had any sleep. So it might be that for a while you say, well, you know, I need to prioritize my sleep. So actually, if my baby goes to bed at 6, I'm going to go to bed at 6. And it's very boring, and it's, you know, but you will feel better, and it will, you know, have an impact on your energy, on your mood. So, you know, even if you just say to yourself, just do that for a week and see how you feel.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot of things is just about balance, isn't it? It's just trying to actually have that balance and actually, I likened it to a little bit as far as like looking at a house. You know, a house needs all 4 walls to be able to keep up that roof, and if you actually let one of those walls fall down, that roof is not going to actually stay up. So you need to be able to look after, you know, like you say, you know, emotionally, physically, psychologically, all those factors. And if you're able to find that balance, then sort of you'll start to feel a little bit better as well. And I guess with that postnatal depletion, it would be very much like mums who have had rheumatis and that kind of thing, who just they struggled with nutrition.
Oh, absolutely.
And the other thing, I guess, for a lot of mums as well is iron.
Yeah.
As far as looking at the iron levels and getting those tested.
Very interesting. I mean, that's it. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because that's another thing that it can actually, masquerade as depression.
Right.
So you might be feeling depressed and have all those symptoms, and then it might be something as simple as being anemic.
Right.
And the other thing too, also, so actually before we make a diagnosis, we want a mom to have some blood work done.
Right.
So to especially check for iron, and then also for thyroid function.
Right. Yes.
So if there's thyroid hormone imbalances, that can also present with depression-like symptoms. Right. So really, that is sort of a first step, just to get a clearer picture of what's going on.
I think we've got another question. I'll just have a look and see if I can find it. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. How did I get on my Facebook? Right, actually have a look and see. All right, I'll get closer to the computer. So for how long is postnatal depletion a factor? Is it just during the newborn phase and then your body replenishes itself slowly, or can it affect you for years?
Well, if it goes untreated, it can carry on.
And I guess that with blood tests, you'll be able to possibly see if you are...
Is that depletion or depression?
No, depletion.
Depletion. Depletion can affect, well, I mean, there's a doctor in Australia who's actually coined the term postnatal depletion, and in his opinion, and from what he's seen in his practice, it can affect women up to 10 years after they've had a baby. So, and if you think that's the life of moms, sometimes you never really get time to replenish yourself, because life is just so busy, and you make everyone around you a priority. You make sure your kids eat healthy, but you yourself don't eat healthy. You sleep deprived. You don't do the things, prioritize the things that really replenish you emotionally, psychologically, because we still have this belief that it's selfish when we do put ourselves first from time to time. But it is so important, because I really think that's the biggest gift that you can give your children, to be a mom who's healthy and thriving.
And feeling good about themselves. Because if you don't feel good about yourself, and you are into that anxious state or depressive state, that actually feeds onto your children as well. So it is the most important person to actually is you, and to be able to look after yourself and create that balance. And yes, being a little bit selfish sometimes when you haven't been out for a whole week and you haven't been out for a walk in the park and things like that, and actually saying to your partner or saying to someone, actually, can you just look after Bubs for even just half an hour or an hour, so I can actually get some fresh air and just take some time for me, because it's really, really important. So it's absolutely necessary. And not being afraid to ask, because if we don't ask, we're not gonna know. So
that's the problem. That we're so good at looking like we handling and coping with everything, that people just assume you don't need help. And it's hard to ask. Again, it makes you feel quite vulnerable, because again, you have to let people know that actually I need a bit of help. I'm not super mom, which again doesn't exist. So
that's why I always have a chat to mums as well, as far as there's lots of talk about birth plans, and I say, well, how about you actually make a postnatal plan? How would you actually like the first 6 weeks to go, or the first 3 months to go? What is important to you? What would you like to continue that you're used to do before you even got pregnant? Whether it was going to the gym, whether it was maybe even playing tennis for half an hour for once a week. So actually making a postnatal plan so that you've actually got some little goals to go towards. And that is especially like for mums who are, you know, corporate mums who are looking to going back to work quite early. That is absolutely fine. If that makes you, you know, feel better about yourself and you've got that balance, and that is absolutely fine. Or thinking about, you know, even starting up a new hobby or looking at maybe doing some courses and things like that. That's actually doable even if you've got a baby. So it's making those little plans and having maybe some goals to actually work towards. So
no, that's such a good idea. And I think what should also be included in your postnatal plan is a support plan.
Right.
Because again, we think we can do it all. And, you know, I think, you know, this generation of women have been raised as very independent, and we grow up believing that we can do anything. And so we believe that, you know, we're just going to have a baby and we'll just deal with it on our own. I don't need help. And then, I mean, often, you know, these days where people move around a lot, you might be in a place where you don't have family around, but still, you know, while you're expecting, you don't think it's a problem because you and your partner will cope. But the point is that it is really hard when it's just you on your own trying to cope, and you're too scared to ask friends, you know, please can you just come and watch my baby for an hour or two, because again, you're wondering, what will they think of me? Will they think I'm not coping? But it is so important. And really, you know, if you're pregnant, I really want you to think about who are the people in your life that you can turn to when things get tough, and actually, you know, set up a plan. Think about the things that you might need. And again, moms who have babies right now, think about what are your needs. You know, do you need someone to help clean the house? You know, do you need someone to watch your baby for a little bit? Do you need someone to maybe go and pick up your groceries? And see if you can think of people in your life that would be willing to do that. You know, the people in our lives, they all have different strengths and weaknesses. So you might have a friend who, you know, she's amazing for emotional support, and you know, you want to speak to her at least once a week to just encourage you, but she might not be into kids, and you know, you're not going to ask her to babysit your child. So just think a little bit about who are the people in your life, and people actually quite like being asked. You know, if someone, just imagine what you feel like when someone asks you, especially a new mom, if she asks you, you know, can you just help me out? I mean, you would happily help, and it actually, you know, sort of makes you feel warm and fuzzy, the fact that you can help. So don't feel like you, by asking, that you'll be a burden. People are quite happy to help. And it's just so important to have, you know, people that you can lean on. And you know, even if it's just, you know, just watch my baby so that I can go and have a walk in the park on my own.
Grab a takeaway coffee. Just, you know, something, that will help you.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so we've actually gone an hour and 13. Good topic. We've really, really enjoyed having a chat, and I hope, hopefully you guys have got some really neat information out of it and some ideas. And if you are going through some anxiety or you know, distress and depression, absolutely seek help. Where can they find you? We'll just say again, as far as you know.
Yes, so they can. Probably easiest to have a look at my website. So
we'll put it in the comments. We'll put your website up and email in the comments, so you can actually get you on that way. So and the same for me, as far as, you know, if you're really struggling with you know, a lot of the challenges that comes with newborns, you know, feeling sleep deprived, and you want a little bit more routine, so you can actually organise yourself a little bit better and make that little plan as far as being able to, you know, fit in the gym or going somewhere on your own, then give me a buzz, and we can certainly help and start, you know, making little changes, which always helps. in the bigger picture. So awesome, guys. Well, thank you. It's been awesome chat, and thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. No, it's been really lovely.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right, well, have a good evening, guys, and good vibes for your baby sleeping. So we'll catch you later. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.